Welcome to Business Talk, presented in collaboration with the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, from the heart of southeastern Ohio at the University of Rio Grande TV studio. Our goals are simple: promote the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, as well as advocate local small business and their support organizations. More importantly, promote southeastern Ohio as a wonderful place to live, explore, and learn. There are many different ways you can find us. The University of Rio Grande Cable Access Channel 17, live online at blogtalkradio.com, and on YouTube if you are unable to catch our show live. Introducing our co-hosts, Jason Winters, Mike Thompson, Patrick Dengel. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, welcome back to our show. You know, Jason, this is the time of the year that really saddens most faculty, individuals, whether it be at the University of Rio Grande or Ohio State University.
Are you serious? This is the happiest time of the year.
No,
The grass is growing, the birds are singing, and it's time for break.
Well, speaking of break, there's a number of people, and we're going to be missing two of our technicians behind the scenes. One is Grant and one is Luke, because they are going to be graduating from the University of Rio Grande.
That's right. We have commencement services coming up on May 2nd at 1 o'clock, and we're going to say goodbye to some very good students.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Well, and next week, you know, it's interesting. I think we've put together a really good series of shows outlining some of the programs, some of the students that have done extremely well here at the University of Rio Grande.
I think next week I'm going to highlight the new business program that's going to roll out next year.
Good.
And
Good.
then in the 3 o'clock hour, we have a couple outstanding business students from the School of Business that we're going to recognize by presenting them with certificates.
Fantastic.
Dr. Donna Mitchell is going to do that. She is the Dean of the School of Professional and Applied Studies, and she's going to present those during her hour show.
Well, I think that's really great. And that's the sad part about it, is we start losing the good students.
Yeah, but our loss is the world's game, Pat. You know, they get to go out there and they get to start their careers, and they get to replace us one of these days.
I understand.
You know, newer models,
Newer
ones that can
models.
do more innovative things.
Well, speaking of innovative things, today we have a really good guest that's going to tell us a lot of things that we should know, but we don't. And one of them has to do with starting a manufacturing company, sausage. He's a son of a big restaurant. This is going to be
Restaurateur?
Yes. And so it's my pleasure, our pleasure, to welcome Steve Evans. Steve Evans, Genuine Country Sausage.
Yes, sir.
You've been involved in the business for many years.
All my life.
all your life.
I grew up down on the farm in the homestead, and Dad used to bring home samples from the plant for us to test. So I was not in a high chair, but I was like 3 years old when we started testing samples. So I tell everybody I've been in the business over 60 years.
Yeah.
60 years. Wow.
Long time.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And I'll be quite frank with you. I've had some of your sausage, and it's very good.
Hope you liked it.
Oh, yeah.
My mother's favorite recipe from 1946. And that's where that comes from. So it's back when, a lot of people don't know this, but when Dad and Mom first started in the sausage business, it wasn't called Bob Evans Sausage. Dad had a little plant over in Springfield Township, and he called it Springfield Farm Sausage.
Huh.
So this was one of the original, when they very first even began fooling around with it, recipes. It was Mom's favorite, and mine too, really. So we kept it alive.
Yeah.
Keep it going, and people love it.
Well, and how many states are they there was a list of states that you...
Well, we sell in Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Michigan, but we can ship anywhere, and I've got customers, I've got a lady in Anchorage and some people in Phoenix, and so we do that sort of, we don't do a lot on the internet with that yet. We're looking at possibly opening an internet store, but that's a big decision. It's a big chunk of change to do it the right way, so we haven't done that yet. But we do a lot of shipping folks out of the area, so, yeah. And we used to have two celebrity customers. I used to ship sausage to Billy Joel, the piano
Billy
man,
Joel.
yeah,
Wow.
and Peter Frampton. But now I've kind of lost contact with those guys. I think Peter may have moved, and I think he still gets it through another source. Billy, his wife was my customer. So.
Huh.
And that's
Fantastic.
changed. So anyway, it's a lot of fun, the people you get to deal with and get to know.
Well, Mr. Frampton is one of the best guitarists.
Oh, isn't he amazing
Oh,
guy?
he is. He
Yeah,
is.
and he wanted to be a guitarist, I think, if I'm remembering this right, and he ended up being a super rock star, and all he really wanted to be was a guitarist in a band, I think. Is that
Well,
right? You know about
I
that,
believe
Jason?
it is. I believe that's
I think
correct.
if you do the history, he just wanted to play the guitar. You know, he lost his guitar for about 20 years, and they found it. It's an interesting story, but we're not going to talk about it. People
Well,
know.
if you ever run across him, if he would like to, he can play for Jason when he does his singing.
I'll
Sure, yeah,
get them,
we'll
try to
do
get that
that,
message to him. Maybe he's listening today. Peter, if you're out there, give us a call.
Yeah, yeah. Here's your opportunity.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
So the original sausage, that's the sausage that Bob was selling back in the early 50s.
Well, it evolved a lot over the years.
Yeah.
So, and they evolved away from this recipe.
Yeah.
So how did he get his start in farming?
Well, here's an interesting question for you two guys, and everybody out there, make your own guess here before I tell the answer. Where do you think one of the most famous farmers in the history of America grew up? If it's a farmer, right?
I would
If it's a great
say-
famous farm, you'd think he grew up on a farm,
Yeah.
but he didn't. My dad grew up on 3rd Avenue in Gallipolis, Ohio. He was a town boy.
Huh.
He didn't have a farm till after he got married and bought one.
Huh.
But he had an uncle down in the lower part of Gallia County that had a farm. And he spent every moment down there he could. And he fell in love with it. So he had his first farm after he got married in 1940, just outside Gallipolis.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a little bit of trivia that most people don't know.
Yeah. And so when he got married,
He got married, right?
married to Jewel,
Married to the one and only Jewel.
the one and only Jewel.
mm-hmm.
So your mom and dad, when they got married,
Right?
they moved into a farm,
Mm-hmm.
and
They did. They had a little place on Burkhart Lane in Gallipolis, about 40 acres. Built a little house there. And Dad wanted to be a veterinarian. That was really his goal.
oh really?
Yeah, and he got into vet school at Ohio State, but he was plagued with migraine headaches, and he couldn't study. He couldn't do the book work, so he had to give it up. It was really heartbreaking for him.
Yeah.
But it was it was one of those life forces, changes in life that you just pick up and go on. Dad it was pretty heartbreaking for him.
Yeah.
But he had Jewel, and he was married at the time, and things kind of sped up. The war was coming, and so that changed the direction of their whole future. Really, was what happened during World War II. Because Dad wanted to be a farmer or a veterinarian, and
Well, that really explains a lot about his support of Gallia County agriculture.
oh yes, yeah, Dad, a longtime supporter of agriculture, FFA, was a big supporter of 4-H
Right.
In Ohio, and FFA, and just a general, and later in life he was a big proponent of year-round grazing, which is a way for small farmers to make money raising cattle and stay in business and keep the family farm kind of intact, because it got harder, and it's still hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So I would assume he had cattle.
he had, we grew up on the farm right over the hill. We almost lived in a zoo. We had everything. You walked out in our yard and you came across peacocks. We had an array of orphaned wild animals, raccoons, groundhogs. We had a pet fox that was orphaned. We had ducks and geese walking around. And that's just in the front yard. So, and we had cattle and horses, and we didn't just have cattle, we had 2 or 3 different breeds. We did only have quarter horses. We had a lot of those. So it was an amazingly fascinating place to grow up. I had black-faced Suffolk sheep as my 4-H project. My brother had chickens. The girls had horses or steer. So it was, and it just evolved. Dad had to start off with Brahma cattle and moved into Hereford and then Black Angus and Charolais, and it all evolved over, those years where we were down just over the hill. It all happened right down on the farm over there. So it was an amazing place to grow up, really.
Yeah.
And a lot of fun. But I wanted to tell you about what happened, how they came about to get into the food business to begin with, because I haven't mentioned the food business. I just talked about farming, and Dad
Right.
wanted to be a vet. So the war comes along, and Dad has been a meat salesman. Now, he did have a job as a meat salesman for Evans Packing Company in Gallipolis, and he was very successful at that. His father, my grandfather Stanley, was a grocer. So Dad had childhood experience working around Grandpa's stores. So he got this job, did really well at it, and the war came along, and he told Mom, he said, Jewel, I don't want you to live out on the farm in the country. He had 2 kids and 1 away. Let's just sell a little farm, move you to town, and then I'm going to have to wait to go off to the war. So he did that, and they moved into town, and Dad had gotten notice to report for basic training. And a fellow approached him and said he wanted to sell his restaurant. He said, Dad, so I'm getting ready to go to the Army. I can't buy a restaurant. Well, the guy said, you haven't heard the terms. He said, sell it to you for nothing down and $500 every 6 months. And Dad thought, well, if it doesn't work, then he'd probably be around that long before he had to leave, that he could turn it back to the guy. So he bought it, and he went off to the war. The restaurant started making money pretty quickly because Dad found the reason the man wanted to sell it was the help was stealing him blind. And he caught the people stealing the cash out of the register and started making money right away. So he goes off to the war and gets a good friend of his, Avon Lusk, from Gal Police, to run that little restaurant while he's gone. And he comes back and he realizes that this restaurant thing is great. And so there's a little piece of property up on Eastern Avenue right next to the Gal Police terminal. And in those years, the state of West Virginia did not permit double-stacked automobiles to cross their state. So all these cars were coming out of Detroit. Now, it's right after the war. We remember the great consumer rush after the war. That's right. Cars are selling like crazy, and they got all these cars coming out of Detroit. And this Route 35 is the main road into the Carolinas and south through here. Well, they got all these tractor trailers stopping at the Gal Police terminal to restack their loads. And Dad sees this little piece of land. He said, Mom, he said, Jewel, if we can get the money together, we can put a restaurant there. And we can make the one downtown, look like small potatoes. So that was that $5 you were telling me about a minute ago. That was the money he was trying to raise. And that became the famous Bob Evans Steakhouse.
Yeah, this has always been a story in my family. My great-grandfather was Ralph McMahon, and he was part of the McMahon brothers. And in Wellston, Ohio, they had a little general store and a bakery. And Bob came down and sold sausage to him. And one day, Grandpa tells a story that Bob would come in and he had this wild idea about opening a restaurant. He was looking for $5 for an investment from the people he was selling sausage. And Grandpa always tells me, said, I put my arm around Bob and patted him on the back and said, I appreciate the opportunity. I'll keep buying your sausage, but I think I'm going to keep my $5. And I've always said, Grandpa, if you'd just gave the man $5. Of course, that was in probably 1950, 53,
that would have been
something like that.
Let's see. Let's do a little math here. Dad was gone 46, down into 46. It was probably 49.
Yeah, 49. And $5.49. That's a chunk of change.
Yeah, that was a chunk of change. Dad, when he first started, well, the restaurants came before sausage. See, weren't making sausage yet. We're just now getting to the restaurants.
I see.
And Dad he does get the money together and builds a 12-stool diner. And opens it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
12 stool.
Just 12 stools is all they had, and a short order grill.
On a counter.
Just a counter, 12 stools. And they never closed the darn thing. I was with them in there years later, and I said, Dad, how'd you lock the doors on Christmas Day? Because they were closed Thanksgiving and Christmas. They had no locks on the doors. They didn't need them. So I said, how do you lock it? Well, he would go in the back door, which did have a lock, and they would take a knife and jam it in the door frames from the inside. And couldn't open the door. That's how they locked it up when it wasn't in business. But when they had this restaurant, they did so well there. Mom was a cook, and either she did it or someone using her real recipes did that. And the food was amazing. But Dad couldn't find good country sausage. And these guys wanted sausage, and he decided, and I've never figured out why he decided to do this, but he decided to learn how to make his own country sausage. And he took it to a next level, to say the least. And he worked on that for quite some time, several years. And he was doing it back. He actually was making sausage on the farm all along, but he wasn't going to make it for sale. Now he got really serious about selling it. So he started making it and selling it at the restaurants, and the truckers wanted tubs of it to go home, 10-pound tubs. So he decided then if they wanted tubs to go home, maybe that he could sell it to the grocery stores. So there's a lot there, but
one thing led to another.
That's the change in fate, really.
Right.
The things that I've heard about your dad was that he was no one was a stranger.
Right.
He could sit down and he could talk with the best of them.
Yeah.
as far as I understand, he did not have an angry bone in his body unless it was with the children.
Or the Highway Patrol. Legendary with the Highway Patrol.
Care to share any stories?
Oh, I was with him. Dad drove, I don't know how many miles a year, but his office was in Columbus and he lived on the farm, and he made that trip almost every day. He did not want to sleep in Columbus. He wanted to be on the farm, and so he just decided to make that trek. And Dad didn't like the speed limit very well, so he got arrested a lot. And I happened to be with him one time. We got stopped in Jackson, and the policeman came up to the window and said, "Mr. Evans, we've clocked you 177 and a 55, and they wanted to give you a citation." And after Dad expressed his opinion about the quality of work that this patrolman had been doing for his career, like pounding on the dashboard of the car, and me laughing, Dad says to the highway patrolman, he says, "I tell you what," he says, "just go ahead and write out 2 of those tickets, because I'm coming back through this afternoon, and I guarantee you I'm not going to slow down." I heard that with my own ears. So anyway, Dad was he just didn't appreciate. He told those folks that they were stopping people out saving money for retirement and their kids' college education. He had a real bug with that. So that was really his bone to pick. But you're right about it. He didn't know a stranger, and he really enjoyed people. And Dad grew up so poor, like Mom did, and that really molded him into the characters that they were and the people they were, and it put him in touch with everybody. Dad used to say I've told me countless times. He said, "It's no disgrace to be poor, but it's darn inconvenient."
Yes, that is true.
And he really felt that way. That just because someone didn't have much didn't mean they weren't really good folk, because he'd been there.
On the same token, some people, when they all of a sudden become wealthy, there's 2 routes that people could go.
Right.
One route is what's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine. The other is what can we do to let it grow and share. And I think your father was.
Dad was very generous.
Yes.
Mom and Dad both were very generous, and they supported countless efforts, not only in agriculture, but in other areas, locally here especially too.
Sure.
They put a lot of the kids through college that nobody knows about, or helped them get through.
Right. Yeah.
And Dad helped found the Ohio Appalachian Center for Higher Education, UWACHI, in Portsmouth, which is an organization that specifically raises resources to help kids get to college from Appalachia, and coaches them, helps them get through, and that sort of thing. Because Dad Mom didn't get to go to college, and Dad really appreciated how important it was for people to get it. You have to work with your mind, not with your back. He used to say, working with your back anymore is just not going to get it. You got to get the education. So,
that's true.
Yeah, but thank you for saying as much. They were very generous, and I can't tell you how much of their resources they gave away, but a lot.
Yeah. And they did not. They earned their money.
Oh yeah. I mean, my dad at one time sold shoelaces to make money. I mean, they did anything they could to make money because they had nothing. Right. My mom was really. Dad wasn't destitute, but Mom, they just barely had enough to eat.
How did he meet?
Oh,
your mom?
It's a fun story. Mom has a nursing background too. She's a Tar Heel from North Carolina. She was born in the little village of Baden, North Carolina, and her dad worked for a construction company that had a contract to build low-level hydroelectric plants on the TVA, that Tennessee Valley Authority down in the southern states. And apparently it expanded up, or their project expanded up into West Virginia, started building. He helped build the roller dam at Eureka, the Galveston locks and dam at Eureka.
Yep.
And but he'd been in West Virginia, worked on the locks, and down in Charleston, and what's the one down this way? I can't think of the name of the little town. Anyway, there's 2 or 3 of them. He worked his way down, then ended up in Galveston, and they got a little house on Grape Street, and Mom ended up in high school in Galveston, and that's where they met.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, so.
So they both grew up in Gallipolis.
Yes, yeah. Mom grew up, bouncing around labor camps and things like that. She grew up in some pretty tough spots.
Sure. Yeah.
She had a place called Roadhead.
It was not easy during
that time. And it wasn't any harder for Mom and Dad than it was for other people. It was a tough time to be in. It was just a tough time to be an average person in the United States. It was Great Depression.
Yeah.
So many people had nothing, and they were part of that group. So yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
And so, how many children did they have?
Six of us.
6.
I'm next to the baby.
Huh?
Yeah, my little brother Bobby lives in Montana. And he's 8 years younger than me, so we spanned quite a time range there. Stanley was 10 years old, so we've been 18 years spread over those 6 kids.
Wow.
Wow.
So yeah, mother, 18 years and all those kids. Wow.
And I'm assuming there were some girls and boys?
Oh yeah, there
or
was 3 girls and 3 boys.
Oh, okay.
And there's 4 of us. 4 of the kids still left. We lost a brother and a sister. So, and we missed them. Mom's still alive and doing very well. In fact, she just at the doctor's yesterday and got a good checkup. 95 years old.
95.
95. And I swear it was the hard work she did that got her that far. She was a worker.
She had the entrepreneurial bug as well, didn't she?
She did, and I want to make an unconditional statement that there would be no Bob Evans Farms without Jewel.
Yeah.
Simple as that. If she hadn't been there and done what she did and made the contributions that she made to the effort, it never would have happened. It never would have happened. We'd still be on that farm down there, which would have been fine, but this wouldn't have been a big company. I can remember as a little boy coming down to breakfast in Homestead, and I'd be the last one down because then I was still the baby. And we'd go in the kitchen and sit down, and there'd be Mom fixing all this food for everybody in the family. And the farm hands would be lined up against a wall, and she'd be telling them what to do that day. I just remember that just as plain as day. 4 or 5 farm hands lined up, standing up against the wall, waiting for Jewel to tell them what to do today and fix some breakfast. She just worked.
She was a farm manager.
She would work. She raised kids and ran the farm, and she did so much to help Dad. People would show up. One of the situations that caused the restaurant, the first restaurant to end up on the farm, was we had a lot of visitors, and Dad invited people to the farm. He was kind of bad about it. He would invite it, and he meant it, but at the same time he wouldn't tell Jewel who all he invited. They'd just show up and expect hospitality. So she used to keep emergency foods, rations that she could get out quick and get in the oven. She'd make stuff up and get it prepared because she knew it was going to happen sooner or later.
So she was running a restaurant anyway, so you might
She
as well
really,
open it.
right, yeah. And I can remember people coming to the house and opening the door and asking Mom if she was serving. And so finally she told Dad, she said, it's time to open up a cafe down here because they're driving us crazy. So they bought the little Bob Evans sausage shop in 1962 right down there. And that was the first company-owned restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
and they still built that cafe out of demand just on the farm. It wasn't until 1968 and they decided to build their first real Bob Evans restaurant in Chillicothe. So.
In Chillicothe, I look forward. Now, it wasn't until the late 70s. I look forward to stopping in at that.
Water Street.
In Chillicothe.
Yeah.
Because of the coffee. I don't know what was done. I don't know if it was a mixture of ingredients, but it was great.
And it was great. Well, it was fresh, and they were very particular about every little detail. It was a small company, and every detail was watched very closely. Interesting story about that restaurant. It originally opened as a fast food restaurant, and it did not do well at all. This time frame is the heyday of McDonald's rolling out, Wendy's rolling out, and White Castle had been around a long time, and Bob Evans Farms thought they would open up a fast food restaurant, and it didn't work out very well. So they decided they would take a different bent with it, closed it for a weekend, got all ready, closed it for a weekend, and remodeled the whole restaurant in 1 week. It opened up on a Monday morning as a full-service sit-down restaurant, and the rest, as they say, is history. It just took off like crazy. So that's the restaurant you remember.
Yeah.
The sit-down restaurant.
And if they could bring back that coffee.
Oh, wouldn't it be something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's several items I'd like to see them bring back that are gone. Now, I did want to tell one story, and then I'm going to let you guys talk because I seem to have taken over the whole 30 minutes. I didn't mean to do that.
Fascinating, Steve. Just go right ahead.
Dad used to do a lot of food shows very early on, and at one of the food shows in the early 1950s, he said he always walked around to see what everybody else was doing. He got good ideas from other people, and so anyway, he met a little short guy back in the corner frying chicken. Had a little white suit on. His name was Harland Sanders.
Yep.
And he said he had the smallest booth there, back in the corner, and he was really worried that the guy didn't have. Dad gave him sausage that day because he wasn't sure anything but fried chicken to eat. Got him to come over and sit down at their booth and visit, and they started a long friendship. Dad bought 3 chicken franchises from Harland Sanders.
Wow.
All in a handshake, never any paperwork. Yep. He was the second person to buy them.
That's the kind of person he was.
Yeah, he was the second guy to come along and buy franchises. And
What
so
was
they
it,
got
Dave?
Dave Thomas was.
Dave Thomas is the first, right?
Dave Thomas, well, I don't know about that history
okay.
exactly, but I know Dave Thomas made a lot of money.
Yes.
He made his founding money for Wendy's
Yes.
at KFC. I do
Yes.
know that,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure of the details there.
Okay.
But he and Dad got to be good friends, and when they opened a Portsmouth KFC, the Harlan called Dad and asked him to come down. That's when now, several years
No, I
later,
didn't know that.
and when Kentucky Fried Chicken had standalone stores, and the
Yeah.
first one in the area was in Portsmouth. So Harlan came up and Dad went down, and about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Harlan said, "Bob, I can't eat here. They won't leave me alone. Let's get out of here." So they ran out the back door and jumped in the car and went into Portsmouth to a restaurant, and they ordered food, of course, and they brought Harlan the wrong meal. And Harlan calls the waitress over and says, "Hey, man, this isn't what I ordered." She said, "We have to talk to the manager." So Dad goes ahead and starts to eat. And he said, next thing he knows, this young guy comes over, and Harlan says, "Nobody talks to me like that." And he just threw his fist up and hit this kid right between the eyes and knocked him right down on the floor. Dad, my gosh. And Harlan was like 73 years old or something. He didn't start selling chicken until he was 66. So he was an older guy when he even started. So he's 73 or 72 or 73 when this happened. And Dad had to get up and get his arms around him. He wasn't done. He wasn't going to hit him once. He'd take that jacket off, and he was going to really pile drive him. So anyway, famous story about Harland Sanders and fist fight in Portsmouth. It's fun stuff.
I remember eating at Claudette's in Kentucky.
Claudette's.
In Kentucky is the first restaurant he had. It's in between.
Corbin?
Yeah, in Corbin.
Yeah. Okay. I've not been down there, so I don't know the lay of the land or who's there. Claudette's is the name of it?
Claudette's.
Oh, Claudette's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we went in there, we couldn't believe all they had on the menu was chicken. We didn't know it was his first restaurant.
So
there.
that was okay. I thought they still had. So they don't have his Sanders Court's not there anymore.
No.
Okay.
But, this has been fascinating. And I wish
We could go on for another hour. I got
You know
more
what?
stories.
I think maybe in the fall you could come back
Well,
and share
I'll have,
more stories.
I'll have to get
with
my
us.
storybook out and refresh my memory, but there's a lot of stuff. I jumped a lot of spaces here and just kind of nitpicked and picked a few things out. But I got some really cute, fun stories about Dad and traveling and things that he did. And Dad was this magnificent personality. He's larger than life, and he loved people, and he loved to go out and see what was out there. And in doing that, created so many fun stories and
Yeah.
you know, adventures and things that
Yeah.
we went on. Took us on a lot of that. So I got more.
Well, we hope so. I know that you're very active in some of the social media. Do we have his? Let's see. It's SteveEvansSausage.com.
Right, StevensSausage.com, and we're on Facebook. Please stop and see us at Facebook. We try to keep that up to snuff as much as we can. I'm not very good on the technology end, but I got some help.
Yeah,
So,
and that's
what you need.
key.
That's right.
And there's a lot of
And you've got some
great
good help here
information.
too, haven't you? Yeah, you guys have
The
been.
students are fantastic.
I know Mike Thompson for a long time. He's great.
Yeah, we like Mike.
Yep, I can understand.
So we have only about 1.5 minutes. Care to leave the listening audience with some wisdom, philosophical wisdom about being involved in restaurant or work or anything of that nature?
Oh my goodness. Well, probably the greatest piece of wisdom I ever heard was find something you really love to do, and you'll never work a day the rest of your life.
That's true.
So if that's the food business or rocket science or whatever, follow your heart and dreams and don't give up. Just don't give up on it. You'll be surprised what you'll get accomplished.
Yeah, that fits in very well.
Yeah, that would be the best advice I could give anybody. If someone were to ask me on the street, that's what I would tell them.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, we certainly appreciate you coming on the
Well,
show
Jason,
today.
nice to meet you, sir, and thank you for having me.
Oh.
And I hope I didn't mean to kind of
heavens,
take over
no.
like that, but
No.
it starts
Oh,
rolling
no,
with
this
me.
has been fascinating, and we will. We'll have you come back in the fall, and we'll
Wonderful.
when we come back to school. Wow, fall. That sounds
Yeah,
good. We
and
got a
then-
whole summer break there.
It's very sad, isn't it, that the students
Yeah,
are yes.
I know we're both depressed. Well, Pat, give our listeners a quick update of what's coming up on the 2 o'clock hour and the 3 o'clock hour.
At 2 o'clock, we have Hannah Scott. Hannah Scott is with the Ohio Co-op Development Program. She's going to be talking about some of the nifty things that they are doing and sort of give an update at the program that they are involved. You know, they do work in West Virginia and Kentucky and Ohio, and they're just a great group. Brad Babst and Mike Thompson are going to be picking her brains in Strictly Business. So that's Hannah Scott. And then at 3 o'clock, we have Dr. Dave Lawrence and Dr. Stephanie Alexander.
Okay.
And they're going to be talking about some of the programs that are coming up.
Well, good.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Jason.
Bye-bye.